We spend so much of our lives staring at polished glass, completely ignoring the vast, invisible web that breathes life into it. You see, artificial intelligence is entirely useless in a vacuum. It requires a planetary nervous system to feed it. Without a global network of connectivity, it is nothing more than dormant potential. To truly understand why this technology is so incredibly powerful today and why it so often feels overwhelming to use, we must look away from the microchip. We must step back and understand exactly how humanity went about wiring the planet. For thousands of years, the human mind possessed an astounding capacity for brilliance. Our ancestors charted the complex movements of the stars, developed intricate mathematics, and engineered magnificent empires. The clay tablet was invented in ancient Mesopotamia to externalize memories, eventually evolving into the bound book to categorize ongoing discoveries. Humanity successfully learned to trap fleeting thoughts in a permanent physical form. Yet, despite this triumph, knowledge remained incredibly heavy. It was fundamentally trapped by geography. Imagine a brilliant architect or philosopher working diligently in Florence during the early Renaissance. They might spend a lifetime perfecting a revolutionary theory. They would carefully write it down, painstakingly binding the parchment pages by hand. But that newly minted knowledge was imprisoned by the landscape. For a world-changing idea to reach a scholar in London, it had to be securely placed in a leather satchel. It had to be carried on horseback over treacherous mountain passes, surviving brutal winter weather and the unpredictable crossing of the English Channel. A vital scientific breakthrough could take decades to cross a single continent. The human mind was no longer the bottleneck of our advancement. Geography was the tyrant. Muddy roads, turbulent oceans, and the sheer physical weight of paper dictated the absolute speed of human progress. The devoted monks who copied fragile manuscripts in remote monasteries did vital preservationist work, but they hoarded knowledge by necessity. They were anchored by the logistical impossibility of wider distribution. The first major societal fracture in this geographic prison was the printing press. Johannes Gutenberg successfully shattered the elite monopoly on information. Suddenly, the written word could be mass-produced. A single rare manuscript could be transformed into 1,000 identical books in a matter of weeks. It was the vital spark that ignited the Renaissance across Europe. However, humanity was still firmly bound by the laws of physics. The speed of information remained entirely tethered to the physical world. A freshly printed book could only travel as fast as the horse that carried it, or the wooden ship that transported it. Wind and muscle completely governed the maximum velocity of human thought. The monumental leap that changed our species forever occurred in the fires of the Industrial Age. We invented the telegraph. For the very first time, an electrical pulse could be sent along a metallic wire. But mastering the land was not enough. To truly collapse the borders of geography, we had to conquer the deep oceans. Consider the sheer epic audacity of the transatlantic telegraph cable. In the mid-19th century, determined engineers embarked on an impossible mission to wire the ocean floor with heavy copper. They loaded thousands of miles of armored cable onto the decks of industrial ships and sailed out into the hostile Atlantic Ocean. Battling violent storms and snapped lines, they unrolled this fragile thread into the darkest abysses of the sea. Their singular goal was to connect two massive continents separated by weeks of isolating travel. When that cable finally functioned, it represented the most significant shift in communication since the dawn of spoken language. A message was completely divorced from the speed of a physical vessel. Information no longer traveled at the exhausting pace of a steamship. It traveled at the speed of light. An invisible pulse of electricity was racing under the ocean waves, carrying human thought from London to New York in mere seconds. We had built the first iteration of the global network. The physical track was permanently laid. I invite you to pause and consider how that sudden acceleration must have felt to the ordinary person living through it. Today, you are likely intimately familiar with the exhausting feeling of digital overload. You are constantly bombarded by urgent emails, mobile phone notifications, and the relentless churn of the 24-hour news cycle. You likely feel a systemic burnout, a quiet sense that you simply cannot keep up with the sheer volume of data demanding your daily attention. I want to assure you with absolute historical certainty that this is not a modern weakness. It is not a personal failing, nor a sign that you cannot cope with the modern workplace. It is a meticulously documented historical pattern. In the 19th century, as the telegraph network rapidly expanded into every major financial center, society experienced the exact same visceral panic. Today, modern historians accurately refer to this specific era as the Victorian Internet. Before the telegraph, a business owner or a merchant would send a detailed handwritten letter across the globe to a partner in India or the Americas, and they would fully expect a reply several months later. They had ample time to think, to breathe, and to strategize according to the gradual rhythm of the seasons. Suddenly, the relentless ticking of the stock ticker was installed directly in their office. Urgent telegrams arrived at all hours of the day and night. Breaking news of a political disaster or an economic crash on the complete opposite side of the planet was placed in their hands on the very same afternoon it occurred. The doctors and physicians of the era were genuinely terrified by this monumental shift. They loudly warned the public of a highly destructive medical condition they explicitly called nervous exhaustion. Esteemed medical journals from the late 1800s are filled with dire articles predicting that the constant high-speed influx of telegrams would permanently destroy the mental health of civilized society. They genuinely believed the human brain was simply not built to process information at the unrelenting speed of electricity. Those Victorian professionals were experiencing the exact same visual pollution and information paralysis that we feel today when looking at our flooded inboxes. The historical pattern is incredibly clear. The sudden exponential acceleration of data always causes widespread societal burnout long before we manage to learn how to adapt. You are not failing to cope with the modern world. You are simply living through the Victorian Internet all over again, just on a vastly grander, more immediate scale. Over the last century, humanity continued to build relentlessly upon that Victorian foundation. We successfully completed the first track of human ingenuity, the ultimate distribution system. Engineers methodically replaced those early copper wires with millions of miles of glowing fiber optic cables. Governments beamed complex satellites into the cold, silent vacuum of space. Society systematically digitized the sum of all human knowledge, from the greatest works of classical art to the most complex scientific journals. The result was a flawless network that now connects almost every single human being on Earth in real time. Access to information was completely democratized. By successfully connecting everyone to absolutely everything all at once, we accidentally unleashed a tsunami. The ancient, tyrannical problem of geography was finally solved. A brilliant idea formulated in Florence can now reach London, Tokyo, and New York in a fraction of a millisecond. Yet, in completely solving that historical problem, a massive new crisis was inadvertently created. The modern world became saturated with infinite, instant information, resulting in the ultimate digital flood. The modern professional, the dedicated artisan, the small business owner, and the tradesperson are all now drowning in an exhausting ocean of administrative data. We have perfected the network, but the human mind is once again becoming the bottleneck. We simply cannot read, process, or categorize the sheer volume of information that our beautiful planetary network delivers to our desks every single morning. We have become weary data processors, bogged down by the friction of managing the very tools meant to liberate us. This precise friction, this overwhelming digital administration, is exactly why the artificial intelligence sitting on your desk was born. The sprawling network of cables and satellites is merely the track. It is the silent infrastructure. To survive the flood, to organize the immense chaos and successfully return our stolen time, we desperately needed an engine capable of processing it all. By mastering the grounded skill set of orchestration, we can begin to offload this heavy lifting to the tools we have built, allowing the everyday human to return to their original calling as a true creator. In our next chapter, we will explore exactly how humanity transitioned from an era of silent storage to an era of exponential processing. We will examine how the digital flood directly forced us to invent a completely new kind of tool. A tool designed not just to blindly transmit data from one continent to another, but to actually read, categorize, and understand it. Before we navigate that vital transition together, I strongly invite you to subscribe to the channel. Tactable Intelligence is carefully designed to be a deliberate, intellectual choice in your day. It is a sanctuary of factual, authoritative education amidst the deafening noise of the attention economy. By subscribing, you secure your place in this ongoing conversation and ensure you do not miss the next vital piece of this puzzle. Once you have done that, I direct you to the description below. There, I have placed a meticulously curated further reading list, detailing the extraordinary engineering of our global networks. It is a fascinating journey into the physical reality of the Internet we use every single day. The digital flood may feel overwhelming today, but remember the lesson of history. Humanity has never drowned in its own progress. We simply learn to build better ships. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the journey ahead.